George Lucas betrayed by the mouse and his minions, Darth Kathleen, Darth JJ, and of course, Darth Iger. Welcome to Eric VT Comics. I am the bringer of universes and an original true believer, your host, Eric VT. And today we're talking about Bob Iger admits George Lucas felt betrayed with Disney's version of Star Wars. Who didn't, right? But anyway, let's get into this a little bit here. Bob Iger recently admitted that George Lucas felt betrayed. We'll take a look at this really quick. We're also going to look at a little bit of George Lucas's original idea for the final three movies and what it might have meant and what it might have done and how the fans might have liked it or not liked it, right? Anyway, let's look at this. So, at some point in the process, George told Iger that he had completed outlines for the three movies. And he sent it to them, right? You go down, and here Iger's saying that, Lucas knew that they were going to stand firm on the question of creative control, that, they were making no promises, and he made that clear to George. Okay. Now, as you see here, Iger confirmed that Darth Iger, Darth Kennedy, and Darth JJ, and this other guy were not going to follow Lucas's outlines. And George immediately got upset when they were talking about the ideas for the film. And I don't know what this is. I'm not going to look at that. George immediately got upset as they began to describe the plot, and it dawned on him that they weren't using one of the stories he submitted during the negotiations. So you can see that he talks a lot about it, and Iger then reveals that Lucas felt betrayed by Disney. Now, in the first meeting with him about the future of Star Wars, George felt betrayed, and while this whole process would never have been easy for him, we'd gotten off to an unnecessarily rocky start. And also, he mentions that Kathleen Kennedy, Darth Kathleen, screened The Force Awakens for George, and he didn't hide his disappointment. He says, "There's nothing new in these films, right? There weren't enough visual or technical leaps forward." Which, okay, I can see that a little bit. And Iger admits that George's criticisms were on point and that The Force Awakens did not provide anything new to Star Wars fans. However, he criticized George for not understanding the pressure Disney was under. Now, Darth Iger says he wasn't wrong, but he also wasn't appreciating the pressure we were under to give ardent fans a film that felt, quintessentially Star Wars. Are you kidding me, Darth Iger? That's about the furthest away from the original Star Wars trilogy that you could have gotten. You separated the trio, right? I mean, that right there is just breaking it apart. And so for him to quote this, that they were under so much pressure to give the fans of the original films what they wanted. Oh my goodness. That, I mean, even Lucas should have been rolling his eyes at that. I mean, it's ridiculous. And he mentions that they'd intentionally created a world that was visually and tonally connected to the earlier films, to not stray too far from what people loved and expected. And George was criticizing us for the very thing we were trying to do, which he's basically saying the same thing he did before. Now, I will say that there are moments in these new movies that are just, that hit the heartstrings, at least for me and many others. I mean, big Star Wars fan, Kevin Smith, he's crying all over these movies, right? And emotionally, and because there's certain parts that hit your heartstrings. When Rey calls, that ship a hunk of junk, and it would never fly, and then their ship is blown up, and then it pans to the Millennium Falcon. I mean, that moment was just awesome, right? So those are the type of moments that were really good, but still, they took the Han and Leia and Luke and just tore them all apart, and that was a little tough for fans. And to say that they were trying to get the original feel when they did that is not right. Um, so basically, Iger was just stating how disappointed Lucas was. Let's take a little bit of look at George Lucas's unused ideas that would likely make fans angry. Okay, now the original trilogy, there was no mention of no wills or midi-chlorians or anything like that. Now, in the prequel trilogy, midi-chlorians was a huge subject and a huge um, controversy, right? They mentioned midi-chlorians in the first prequel movie, The Phantom Menace, and you can see that they continue talking about the wills in Rogue One. Of course, in Rogue One, you get this guy, the Guardian of the Wills, right? I am one with the Force. The Force is one with me, or whatever he was constantly saying. He was kind of a cool character. But and he says, I never got to finish my original story. This is George Lucas talking. I never got to tell people about it. A lot of fans would have hated it, just like they did Phantom Menace and everything, but at least the whole story from beginning to end would be told. So, George Lucas's original idea with the wills and the midi-chlorians would have been controversial, to say the least, probably. Here's where they start talking about, Phantom Menace, the midi-chlorians and all that. And you can see that, yeah, they are microscopic life forms said to live everywhere and within everyone. And Anakin had the highest count of midi-chlorians that Qui-Gon Jinn had ever seen. And everyone hated in The Phantom Menace. We started talking about midi-chlorians, Lucas tells Cameron, who conducted the interview. There's a whole aspect to that movie that is about a symbiotic relationship, to make you look and see that we aren't the boss, that there's an ecosystem. Okay, so Lucas was really, really into these midi-chlorians, and the Journal of the Wills, and his original idea for this new trilogy included going into a microscopic world where the wills lived, where the midi-chlorians lived, and showing all that. Now, that would have been possibly even further away from Han and Chewie and Luke and Leia and Darth Vader and the Emperor and all the stuff we love about Star Wars. Now, if done right, who knows? But that idea is far off from this. Now, this is concept art of Star Wars very, very, very early on. You see a version of R2-D2 and C-3PO and Chewie. They turned this alien-looking character into another type of character like Rebels or one of those cartoons. And that was Star Killer, I believe, and I'm not sure who the girl was, but yeah, that was the original take on it. And Han Solo and Luke Skywalker were kind of the same character. That's far off from the wills, okay? The wills goes back to the original concept of Star Wars for George Lucas. Here is the famous Journal of the Wills 7.477 saying, "First comes the day, then comes the night. After the darkness shines through the light. The difference, they say, is only made right by the resolving of gray through refined Jedi sight." Okay, so the wills, the Journal of the Wills, that was a big thing. Now, the wills were shown supposedly in one of these cartoons, the Lost Missions or something, for Yoda. There's Yoda and these will guys, and Why do the Wills have kabuki masks, right? I don't know. But yeah, they live in this microscopic world, or this uh, I don't know, acid LSD laced world. I don't know, some drug induced world, but supposedly it's the microscopic world where they control things, they control the force, and beings, humans, aliens, Yodas, Chewies, they all are vessels of the Wills. So here's a picture of what the Wills were supposed to kind of look like, at least, kind of, sort of, with their kabuki masks. And at one point, there was speculation that Snoke was a shaman of the ancient Wills. That's a theory. And if you look at the shape of the face, it's not the worst theory I've heard. Okay, so I don't think that's what they're doing, but it's an interesting concept. I think that they could have pulled off, maybe. But nonetheless, all the Wills, all the midichlorians, they never saw the light because the Mouse sent Darth Iger, Darth Kennedy, and Darth JJ to squelch George Lucas's original idea for the final three movies. And now let's talk about George's idea for the last three movies. Sure, it probably would have been a disaster. Okay. But if done right, if they could somehow show Luke, now he George did have a female Jedi type character that wanted to be trained by aged Luke, who was hesitant. So there is some themes going on that they stuck with, I believe. But if you take maybe Luke's death and then he transcends into the microscopic world, the Wills, where supposedly Qui-Gon Jinn learned how the secrets of um, the Force Ghost, right? And Yoda and Ben Kenobi perfected that. So now Luke traveling to that microscopic Wills world could have been pretty cool if he reunited with his father, Yoda, Ben. I think if it was done right, if Lucas's idea was done right, if he had a good idea for this, where it connected the original Star Wars with this microscopic world, where it shows a little bit of what's going on. It's not the whole movie. The whole eighth or ninth movie doesn't take place in the microscopic world. But if it shows a little bit portion of it and it shows a connection, it could have been a beautiful, it could have been a beautiful thing. It could have been really well done and transcending for this whole series. Now, the likelihood of that is very little, probably under 5%, that Lucas's idea was actually that good. But if it was, and they didn't do it, it's really too bad, because especially the last movie, was just. These last two movies have just been. They have their moments. I love moments in them. I love it when Luke winks at Luke winks at C-3PO. I love it when he sees R2. I love it when they show the Millennium Falcon for the first time again. But then there's moments like, they don't show Luke's reaction to Han's death. Chewie doesn't hug Leia after Han's death. It's just those things, and many other things about these movies, especially that they really tore apart the reasons we love Star Wars, right? Han, Luke, Leia, the whole original feel. Now, Iger says, "Oh, we wanted to keep that feel, but they didn't do it." They so, but maybe Lucas's idea for the last three movies were even farther away from the originals than what we're seeing today. So maybe it's a good thing, but nonetheless, George Lucas was betrayed, or felt betrayed at least, by the Mouse and Darth Iger, Darth Kennedy, and Darth JJ. Watch out for It's not a rule of two, it's a rule of three with a mouse. All right, guys, thanks for joining. Please like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. Truly appreciate it. And we'll see you next time on Eric VT Comics. Bye.